Hi, this is Ronnie. I'm at the Woodstock Fruit Festival with Dr. Douglas Graham.
Ronnie,
good to see you again.
It's a treat to see you again.
So I
Every
guess
time.
I want to start out by asking, how did you end up where you are now, speaking at the Woodstock Fruit Festival? How did you take this journey?
Well, I took an airplane over from London to New York, and then I drove up, and here I am. What happened was I wrote a book called The 80-10-10 Diet, which explains caloronutrient ratios and how to get the most out of your food when we're eating raw food by using a fruit-dominated diet for calories and a vegetable-dominated diet in terms of volume.
Yeah.
So and a woman named Victoria Arnstein read the book and thought it wasn't so much for her, but it was really going to be right up her husband's alley. This was something he was looking for, so she asked him to read it. He was not too keen on it, but he did read it. And then he goes, "Oh my God, how did I not write this book? How did I not see this?" It was right in front of his face the whole time. So once he saw it, he embraced the diet and contacted me, and we met in New York. Oh, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, maybe more, and became fast friends. I mean, he's a dedicated athlete, and I'm dedicated to sports and fitness. And I did everything I could to support Michael and his wife in their efforts to become more healthy.
Sure.
And eventually Michael said, "This is so good I have to tell others." And he envisioned this beautiful thing of the Woodstock Fruit Festival, you know, literally a low-key festival where, I mean, it's not a marketing system for product sales. It's just everybody's happy. We're a tremendous disproportionate number of fit people are here, but everybody's happy no matter whether they're doing fitness or not. The food is absolutely abundant, and every year the festival's better than the year before.
Sure.
So I'm honored they invite me to come back. But I think initially the reason I'm here is because I planted the seed, and it's grown up into the Woodstock Fruit Festival.
So you're obviously well known for promoting raw foods. You've been into raw foods a long time. Why do you promote 100% raw diet over a program that's maybe, 90-95%, whatever percentage people?
I mean, my experience has been that commitment is commitment, and a partial commitment just ends up being broken in many different ways. And that people are very much people. We can easily get distracted. So when people try to balance eating some cooked food with eating raw food, there may be people who can do that quite happily, but the majority of people start eating more and more cooked. The cook takes over again, just like it did the first place. I mean, it was a big deal to go to raw, and then it's a big deal to stay raw for some people, and they have a really difficult time staying raw. I mean, you think about it. How do you stay raw while you're eating cooked? And so the cook tends to take over, and then you start eating less and less raw. As far as health benefits, if somebody could figure out how to eat 5% of their calories or 10% of their calories from cooked food, it's not going to kill them any more than if they live in a city and breathe relatively dirty air compared to living in the country and breathing super clean air.
Sure.
Or waking up to an alarm clock every single morning. It's not going to just suddenly kill you, but every factor of lifestyle is either helping your body accumulate health, or it's working against you a little bit. So, if I only punch you a little, like once a day, it's not going to kill you, but it's really not doing you benefit. So for me, I find it's easier to commit 100% and remain committed than, especially because the rewards are so good, that I don't miss eating a little bit of cooked. To me, wouldn't be better than what I'm doing.
Sure. what I was wanting to bring up as well is I think there's an idea that yourself or people that are 100% raw food diet, that they're maybe so focused on food, so focused on the diet and everything. And for me, I feel like you really teach about health, the whole kind of holistic thing, or all the different aspects. I'd like to ask you about what do you have any daily habits that for your health, or tips or tricks, the other aspects of things like mindset, emotional stuff? What have you done in that kind of area to develop health in your life outside the diet, I guess?
Well, I mean, first of all, I find the food that I eat so satisfying that when I'm eating it, I'm enjoying it, but I'm not thinking about food again for another 4 or 5 hours or 6 hours till the next time I'm ready to eat. And in between, I'm just satiated. So I'm not fixated all day on food. I like to prepare a meal so it's ready on time, but I don't spend much thought on food. You get that taken care of, it's done. Pretty much the same thing. I am pretty regular with my fitness, but I miss a day now and then. Not often, but I miss a day now and then when I need more rest. But I'm not fanatical about fitness. I get in 45 minutes to an hour a day as an average, and that's more than enough to help me keep my fitness levels where I want them to be.
Sure.
I think perhaps one of the toughest areas for people to grow with, and the idea that is maybe the idea that we keep on growing as adults, is that we're going to grow in our personal habits, we're going to grow in our lifestyle management, we're going to grow. Most of all, the potential is to grow in the way we talk to ourselves. To learn to speak without sarcasm, to learn to speak in a way that blows wind into people's sails and helps support them.
Sure.
I mean, I walk up to people and tell them, I want to do everything I can to support them, and they think I'm making a joke because they're just not used to hearing that.
Yeah.
And I'm very sincere. I want to support. It's easy for somebody who's walking down the beach to kick somebody else's sandcastle, but it's another thing to build something constructive. And I think being constructive is a mature thing, but the first thing we have to learn to be constructive with is ourselves, and to grow as an individual to where when things are challenging, that we're still being kind to ourselves. We're not just saying, oh, I'm useless, I'm worthless, I'm not good enough, but instead to think, I need to grow through this. This is a challenge. It's an opportunity for me to grow. Here's a chance. I see the good side of this. I see something positive coming out of this.
Sure.
And to keep that focus is a great opportunity for people. And I think it's one that requires practice, like anything else.
Yeah. Awesome. I know obviously you're an advocate of fasting as well, and I've heard a lot of myths about the idea that fasting can cause something called metabolic damage, and that could maybe lead to people putting on weight and all sorts of things like that. Could you address that question, and what does that mean to you? Does any of that make sense? Or?
Well, typically in a fast, all facets of anatomy and physiology vector towards health. People get better. Just like we do every night when we go to bed, we expect to wake up better. We don't expect to have done metabolic damage to ourselves by taking a night off and getting a good night's sleep. If we have a bigger problem than an evening of sleep will solve, sometimes we need to take adult-sized portions of rest, which is what we experience when we take some days to fast. As far as doing metabolic damage, I have never seen this happen. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but I've certainly never seen it happen. And what I have seen happen is that people become much more efficient, their digestion becomes much more efficient, their absorption becomes much more efficient, and if after a fast they overeat, they're going to show it by gaining weight. There's a bit of a balance between fruits and vegetables. When we think most fruits carry 4 to 10 times the calories per bite of vegetables. You know, we have to remember that eating our vegetables is just as important as eating our fruit. And if weight management becomes even a slight issue, you know, so you add in a cucumber. If you add in one more cucumber into every meal, you'll have cut your calorie intake dramatically, while still getting to eat the volume that allows you to feel satiated. I don't find that people damage any aspect of metabolism during a fast. Instead, what I see is that they become much more efficient. If it was a car, it would mean instead of driving and getting 20 miles to the gallon, maybe you could get 25. Well, then you just don't have to put in as many gallons. Or if you want to still eat the way you did, then you have to do a little bit more to burn that fuel.
Sure. Why is 80-10-10 the program best for athletes in your opinion, or athletic people?
Well, what I've noticed, and what is shown in all of the sports physiology text, it's shown in medical tests where they're looking at what causes disease, what supports cancer growth, and in the noetics testing where they're looking at factors that affect our intelligence, is that the ability to uptake, transport, and deliver oxygen is compromised as the fat in our diet rises. It's a pretty straightforward, what's called an inverse proportional relationship. As the fat goes up, our ability to uptake into the bloodstream, transport through the bloodstream, deliver from the bloodstream, oxygen goes down as the fat goes up. And so for an athlete who depends upon a delivery of oxygen, keeping the fat low is a requirement. Now, there are some sports that are anaerobic. They don't depend upon the delivery of oxygen. The anaerobic sports depend upon the delivery of sugar. And it turns out that the same inverse proportional relationship exists for sugar as does for oxygen. As the fat in the diet goes up, the ability to uptake, transport, and deliver sugar goes down, so we become less efficient at it. Eventually, if the fat is high enough, it leads to diabetes, which was first mentioned in the American Medical Association journal in 1959, that as fat goes up, the rise in diabetes goes up. And then again in 2010, I believe it was, in 2010, a Dr. Delgado put out a video called How to Become a Diabetic in 6 Hours. And he showed the same thing again. He shows the inverse proportional ratio. As fat goes up, our ability to handle sugar goes down. So for athletes who depend on sugar and oxygen, other than their pure fitness, they still have to have fuel and they have to be able to breathe. 80-10-10 is a no-brainer.
Okay. One question I wanted to bring up, and I remember you saying something interesting about this, is there is a bit of an idea among some health practitioners that human beings for a long period of time are living on a starch-based kind of diet. And I remember you saying that this would have been almost impossible. And could you maybe speak about that? What's your opinion on that?
I do think it's almost impossible, or perhaps impossible. We as people have not had the ability to manufacture much starch. We simply couldn't manufacture starch in great quantities until we had internal combustion engines, until we had tractors and plows, and otherwise we were relying on a man standing behind a horse, standing with a plow in between the two of them, and you could grow enough oats or something to feed the horse, but you couldn't grow enough oats to, a huge cow or dairy farm 100 years ago would have been 30 to 40 heads. That was considered a massive farm. If you could grow enough food for 30 to 40 heads, it was pretty much astonishing. And so we couldn't really do a high starch experiment ever, and try to live off starch. Some people tried it with tubers such as taro or potato, but the manpower involved is just astronomical. And in order to do it on grains especially, it simply required internal combustion engine. We couldn't do it. But even if we could have done it thousands of years ago, we didn't have the ways to consume that starch until once again in the late 1800s we started to refine the grains, rolling the grains and pressing the grains and refining the grains so that it became more consumable for humans. Otherwise the grains as whole grains are extremely coarse and not particularly appealing and just very rough to consume. So there's a lot going against the idea that we were ever starch eaters. Plus, of course, if you ever just taste starch, I mean, it is by definition, if you look it up in the dictionary, starch is tasteless. And if you had to choose between a peach and something that was tasteless, I think you'd take the peach every time.
So do you think people were living in warmer climates where there was more availability to fruit for a longer period of time than we think? Because I think in the West, in Scotland and places like that, we think that there's been a very long lineage of people living there, but in relative terms it's perhaps not as...
Well, I can conjecture on stuff like this, but I'm only 61. I can't tell you how it was 20,000 years ago or 80,000 years ago. It was probably cold and wet and dirty, and in the cold, wet, dirty places. They weren't very appealing. And warm and dry and sunny, super appealing. But you know, as societies grow larger, they may have pushed out. They push out their borders and they push out their boundaries, and eventually some people get pushed out. We can look and see, say, Eskimos living north of the Arctic Circle, and they've been there for a while, and there's various conjectures on how they got there. But let's not think for a second that they are thriving out there. They are surviving, and it's a huge difference when you think the average Eskimo is old and dead by 40 years old. That, for human beings, that's just not thriving. Yeah. You have to work pretty hard in our society to be dead by 40. That's a lot of cigarettes, or a lot of alcohol, or a lot of drugs, or a lot of really poor food choices and lifestyle management choices. So, I mean, to only make it to be physically active every day and outdoors most of the day and still only make it to 40, I don't think it speaks all of it. It's great they could survive. Human beings are astonishing. We can survive. But it's just eking out a living.
Yeah. Coming, just a few more questions, but we were speaking about as well the kind of economics involved in the non-vegan approach, or what's your knowledge on that, your thoughts on that, and how?
Well, I've done some of the math and done some of the research calculations to see how it would be done. I'm not the only one to have done this, but we know that on a vegan diet we can feed close to 40 times as many people on the same amount of land as you could on an animal-based diet. But on a raw vegan diet, on a program based around fruits and vegetables, we can feed 2.5 times as many as we can on a cooked vegan diet. So it's 100 times as many people as you can on an animal-based diet, or the standard Western diet. We can feed 100 times as many people on the same piece of land. When you start thinking that there's fruit trees that are producing over 4,000 pounds of fruit per year. Okay, some are only producing 1,000 to 2,000, but there are fruit trees producing even 4,000 pounds of fruit per year. And that you can put 15 to 20 of such fruit trees on one piece of property, meaning you can generate some serious fruit numbers. Economically, fruit is the best bet for the grower as well as for the consumer. As far as environmentally, having fruit trees create a better environmental effect than any other kind of crop, certainly better than an animal crop, better than a monoculture of grain. I think environmentally, economically, culturally, we all come out on top
Sure.
with a fruit-based diet.
And what's your vision for the future? Where do you think this is going to go?
I mean, I'd like to see a time where, I'd love to live to see a time where everybody's eating a raw, fruit-based diet, whole, fresh, ripe, raw, organic plants, 80-10-10, and not talking about it at all. Like that's the automatic thing.
Yeah.
Along the way, there's going to be some upheaval. There's going to be some people who stop doing certain jobs in order to do other jobs. The quality of the produce in the markets is going to change dramatically. Grocery stores that are 20 aisles big, they're going to have 19 aisles of fruits and vegetables, the highest quality you ever imagined, for great prices, because as you grow more of something, you know, the prices come down. As there's more demand and more supply, the prices will come down. So I can picture grocery stores that are 20 aisles big, 19 of produce and one of toilet paper or something, you know, one of whatever the other necessities are. But we get the morgue out of the grocery store, we get the dead bodies out of the grocery store, we get the bottles, boxes, and cans and other inert products out of the grocery store. I think it's funny because in the 60s there was a TV show called Star Trek where they made a tremendous number of predictions about how the future could be. And nowadays a lot of those things have come true. A lot have come true. But the one that they based the show on and talked very little about was the idea that the zeitgeist, the public mindset would have a breakthrough. And I think we're getting close to that breakthrough. We're not there yet, but we're getting close to having that breakthrough where we can start to see that peace is a better option than war, that waging war with your own body is just as intolerable as waging war against your neighbors, that the peace-love generation of the 60s had a pretty good idea, in fact. And now that they're in charge, maybe they'll begin to start taking over that, pushing that concept more. But I'd like to see a time where we're planting more trees every year and reclaiming the land from the cattle and going back to how it was when Columbus got here and a squirrel could go from Maine to Texas without coming out of the trees, as Dr. Clapper talks about. I think it's a beautiful image.
Sure.
We can produce all the food we need in a very small space. It does not take a huge landmass to produce enough food to feed all of the United States. So I'd love to see it where the people shift from discussing whether or not vegan or vegetarian or raw are options while we're eating standard Western diet. I don't mind them still discussing those options, but I'd like to see them eating a low-fat, plant-based, whole, fresh, ripe, organic, plant-based diet. And then if they want to have conversations about what might be better, well, fine. Let's always keep living and learning.
Sure. So if people want to find out more about what you're doing in the future, where do
They can always find me on Food and Sport. It's 10 letters, FOODN, SPORT, the word food, the letter N, the word sport. We have a big Q&A. We have lots of educational events and products. We're here just to promote healthful living and a healthy lifestyle and give classes in lifestyle management to people. And I look forward to getting a chance to meet people who've seen this video.
Yeah.
When they just come and introduce yourself to me, tell me that you met. Yeah. It'll be fun. Tell me you saw this video. Come to the UK Fruit Fest. That's where, I look forward to being at the next UK Fruit Fest. I hope you have me. It was blissful. The UK Fruit Fest this year was absolutely blissful. I couldn't have pictured a better event, truly. And to have started from, you did exactly what you said. You went to all the festivals, took the best from all of them, created one festival that was even better. And I know next year will be even better, so I appreciate that no end, Ronnie.
Okay, thanks for giving me some time.
Ronnie,
I know you're a busy guy here.
It's a treat. Yeah, I have to go do a food demo.
And your food demos have been good. I've been enjoying
I'm glad. We're going to have soup today.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Thanks very much.